I'm Carey Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour, and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show, Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carey Stinson, and this is Purple Roads. Welcome to Purple Roads. I am so glad you're back with me again. So thankful for our Purple Roads fans. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for the questions. Thanks for sending in who you want to see on Purple Roads. We are working on bringing in a lot of those wonderful guests, and we've got some great guests coming up this month. We have a wonderful guest today that I think you're going to love, and you're going to love hearing her story. Her name is Wendy Gilhula, and she has written a children's book series called Pika Bunny Says, and we'll get to that here in one second. All the Barney fans last week, thank you so much. It was very special to me to have David Voss in. He's just an amazing person, and you got to see that last week. So thank you for that. We'll have some fun Barney people coming up as well, so hold on for that. I want to give some love to our sponsor, Infusion HF 70+. They have been wonderful, and we are so glad they're with us. So today we have a children's author who has an amazing story of never giving up, and that got her to this wonderful series, and she's doing a lot to help children navigate this difficult world. Her name is Wendy Gilhula, and I'm so glad she's here today. How are you, Wendy?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, the beautiful thing of social media is that we can have connections with people, and that's how we met. And you sent me a message, and I was just blown away with what you're doing. And I love the book series. There's a lot, the messages that I grew with Barney, you're doing as well, and you're doing it in a little bit different way. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Pika Bunny Says?
I will, but I first want to thank you for everything you did for my kids as they grew up. It's, lasting memories and, giggles on. But to answer your question, I write Pika Bunny books, and my umbrella is to help children navigate a difficult world. So my books talk about different things like anxiety with approaching thunderstorm, what is love, which is a really big question, and saying no to bullying, finding the courage to say no to bullying.
Well, the message of love, obviously, that's what Barney taught for all those years. So when I saw that, there was an automatic connection. One of the things that I think is amazing is how this series became, because you did this 2 decades ago and was told no,
Yeah.
and you didn't stop. So why don't we start there with how that
Sure.
came about?
Sure. So Pika Bunny Has a Big Question was a manuscript that it wasn't called Pika Bunny then because my main character wasn't an American Pica. He was really a white bunny with long ears.
Okay.
But this was back when, there weren't computers to type on. So I was typing on a typewriter. So this is probably closer to 30 years.
Right.
Showing
Well,
my
I would
age.
remember the typewriter.
Right. So I only had one copy. Oh, I just realized that I only had one copy, and I sent it to a publisher, and thank goodness they returned it because I wouldn't have had a copy now that I think about it, but it was rejected because the publisher said that kindness was not relevant.
Isn't that amazing that how important it is today? And back then they felt like kindness wasn't relevant.
Exactly. So I was so embarrassed. I stuck it in my bottom drawer of my dresser for decades. And then every 2 years when I cleaned out my dresser, reorganized, I would look at that manuscript and I would literally put it in the little wastebasket. And then I would stare at it, and then it was time to put things back in. And I'm like, I don't think my words are trash. So I would take it back out and I would put it in the drawer. And it stayed there for a very long time until 2014.
Wow. And then what got you in 2014 to send it off again?
One of my students, a middle schooler, looked around my home. He comes to he used to come to my home for math tutoring. He's since graduated.
Okay.
And he was just trying to get to know me better, but he said, "What do you do all day when you're not tutoring?" I know. And I thought, okay, I would laugh because he was in middle school. In my head, I said, I write books that children are never going to read. And then on the outside, I said, you never know what Mrs. Gilhula is doing. And I didn't like that inner dialogue for the next few days, about a week. Like, you write children's books that nobody's going to read. What are you going to do about that? You mentor kids all the time and tell them that they can be the best they could be and be brave and step out. And I wasn't doing it for myself. So that's why I went to that bottom drawer and dusted off my manuscripts.
How many people knew that you had been doing, that you had written these books, that you'd sent them off in the first place?
One, that publisher that rejected me is the only one that knew.
Really? Your family didn't know?
No, they had not. Well, this was before my kids were born that I wrote them.
Right.
And I don't even think I wasn't married yet.
Okay.
I think I wasn't married. So these were secret things.
Right.
And I was telling my stories through dance and choreography for a very long time. But then I wasn't being creative very much when I was mentoring.
Uh-huh.
And, here we are.
So now who did you send it off to in 2014?
Well, I think I didn't send them off until 2015 because I had to redo the whole manuscript. I didn't want the white bunny with long ears because there were too many of them. And so I researched different rabbits, and I found a cousin to the rabbit, which is the American Pica or the American Pica. Mm-hmm. And then I realized later that Pikachu is really a Pica or a Pica. Okay. And the reason that the company says that he's a mouse is because most American children don't know what a Pica is because they've just been newly discovered here. So I changed the character, and I thought, if this ever gets published, that would be so cool to go to schools and talk about how scientists are trying to get the Pica on the endangered species list. I'm just kind of dreaming, and I'm sending it out, and I'm getting those, and I'm sending it out, and I'm getting those, and I'm sending it out, and I get we want to talk to you. I was like, what? And then I had that phone conversation. They said a contract is coming. And my first reaction was not, oh my goodness, these are going to become real books. Right. My first reaction was, oh my goodness, my family doesn't even know that I'm doing this.
Wow. So what was their reaction when you told them?
They said, wait, you're doing what? Wait, what? I said, yeah. Well, when did you start doing that? I was like, well, before you were born. I was like, why don't I know that? I said, well, I didn't share it.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I remember back in my day when I told my family I was going to be a purple dinosaur. There wasn't Barney. It wasn't on the TV show yet when I was doing it, and so trying to explain it to people what I was going to do, they thought I was a little crazy, because they were thinking, it's a mascot, or I had no clue. And so, even when I finally did my first big shows, my family and friends showed up, and I'm like, what in the world is happening here? So I can just imagine the reaction, when this happened.
Yeah, it's been fun. And I had that reaction again from them when one day I was reading via Skype, and there was a little boy in the second row, and he had a T-shirt on that said "Kindness is cool." And the reading hadn't started yet, so I think he thought I was like a TV show, like it wasn't a live thing, or that I couldn't see him. And he was being not nice at all to the boy next to him. So I just called him out and I said, "Hey, you on the second row, what does your shirt say?" And he looked down and goes, "Oh, kindness is cool." And I was like, oh, and he didn't see the irony and that I just had seen him be mean, and he was wearing the "Kindness is Cool" T-shirt. So I thought about that for a couple days. One morning I woke up, and before my feet even hit the floor, I said, I'm going to create an app. I'm going to create an app that tracks kindness at school, home, and for our planet. Then I jumped out of bed and I got on it. I've never done an app before. I do have a patent, but I'd never done an app before.
Right.
But I figured it out.
Well,
And
you'd
then
never
again,
done a
my
book before either, and next thing you know, you got
True.
3 of those.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. And again, my family's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, you don't know how to do an app. I said, well, I'm getting help, but yeah, this is what I'm doing.
So let's talk. We're going that direction. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about this app because I think it's fascinating. It kind of, keeps people in check, right? A little bit in their days.
Yeah. It kept me, yeah. So I'll tell you about it, how it keeps me in check too.
Okay.
So it's called the Pika Bunny Kindness Tracker,
All
and
right.
it's free. And like I said, it tracks your areas, your acts of kindness in 3 different areas.
And where
So
can you
instead
find
of,
this at? Where can you find this app?
the App Store, Google Play,
Okay, great.
wherever you get your app. And I was doing the beta testing. And instead of school, I was using in my head, I was using, kind of work. And then I realized when I was looking at the scores for the 3 different pages, because you can compare, my home score was the lowest. And I'm like, why is my home score the lowest? And I'm scrolling through all the acts that you can do. And it's like, well, you know what? I am not saying good morning in the morning. I'm being more businesslike. When I say, when I see somebody, I'm already in my schedule, like this is what's coming up and what did you want to do tonight and things like that. I'm not even saying good mornings. It's not really mean, but it wasn't really kind.
Right.
They may or may not have been complaining about doing chores.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I wasn't giving enough hugs.
Right.
So it was really good feedback for me. And LinkedIn has been wonderful because I get a ton of good feedback from the LinkedIn community. And they said a lot of the adults were saying, well, I use this for myself, but instead of school, I use work. So now I have a Pica app coming, and it's Practice Intentional Kindness app. So it's going to be like the Pika Bunny kindness tracker, but it's going to be for adults.
I love that because I don't think there's any question in our daily lives. It's amazing how you can change a situation, interaction with someone just from being nice or them being nice to you.
Exactly. Like if you're not in a hurry to get somewhere and somebody needs to pull out, let them go.
Right.
And then you get, even if they don't wave at you, thank you. You were kind.
Well, obviously I've seen the power of a hug. All those years with Barney, it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And we talked about the power of the I Love You song when we would perform that number. And at the end, when a child would hug their parents, it was an amazing moment. It was very emotional to see thousands of kids doing that. And obviously it affected me as well. So I think this is a wonderful thing that you've created here.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the books. Let's talk about the first one, Pika Bunny and the Thunderstorm. What did you? Because I know that one's about anxiety. We've got them right here, and you've got them in.
Wow.
We've got them in 2 different languages, right?
Yeah. This one comes in all English, and it also comes in dual language where you'll have English on the top and Spanish on the bottom.
Okay, wonderful.
So this one's go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say. So, why did you pick anxiety as the message in that book?
Oh, I'm an anxious little bunny myself.
So it was close to home.
Oh, yeah. They're all close to home. This book in particular, I wrote this story to myself when I was 6 years old.
Wow.
Because I was terrified of thunderstorms. Every single part, the wind, the rain, the thunder, the lightning, all of it. So I came up with different reasons why you shouldn't be afraid, or just to think of the wind in a different way and think of the thunder in a different way. For example, Pika Bunny hears the thunder rolling and rolling, so he's getting anxious because he knows this thunderstorm is coming. And then Mama just tells him, well, thunder's really a warning for the animals to come home, like a lullaby, just come on home. And then Pika has to decide whether or not he wants to still be anxious about it. And it's like, when I wrote this, I didn't realize the effect it was going to have, but I've been honored to be able to read at several children's hospitals. And this has been very popular because those kids in the hospital, they have their own thunderstorm, their own storm that they're dealing with, or a storm that's coming. And, talking about doctors and treatments and all of that. Parents have told me that just thinking about the treatments in a different way, like this is how we're going to get healthy. Don't think that as a scary thing, although it's just different and it's going to help us get healthy. And this is what we have to do. This is like the storm we have to go through to get to the other end.
Yeah, I've experienced a lot of that with the hospitals as well, and such an unbelievable experience, and seeing how the parents deal with it. And I think that's wonderful to find a way to help them in such a difficult situation.
I thought that getting the books in my hand was going to be the end of the rainbow. I thought, oh, that's it. When I hold these books, it's going to be it. It was just the starting point. I didn't realize when I would be speaking the effect that it had on everybody and the messages that were coming out of it, and then where that's going. It's just like snowballing in great places. I had no idea, and I feel so honored that kids are loving it.
Well, I think we learned this with Barney all those years. If you're authentic with your message and you believe in your message, it's amazing how the kids and the parents will respond, and when they find the place that you're coming from. And I think it's really interesting that part of that book is because you have anxiety as well. I mean, you were kind of helping yourself out through that, and I think that's where the authenticity comes from, and you know what I mean. And so you're helping these kids, but you're also kind of helping yourself as you went through that.
Oh yeah, it's self therapy, that's for sure. And when I'm reading, I have this little U2 symbol that they can use with their hands. So I'll say, I'll start out with, it takes a lot of courage to write a book about thunderstorms. And then they're like, yeah, you could tell their eyes are like, yeah, it does. And I said, who's afraid of thunderstorms? And a lot of them will hide the U2, like hide it. They don't want anybody to know. Some are like, yeah, I'm afraid of thunderstorms. And I said, yeah, I was too. Sometimes when the lightning is really, really bright, I have to remind my own self of this story.
Isn't that interesting too, that you say that some of them, a bunch of them agree, but somewhat different levels? Because I've seen that as well. I've seen that with children, that some are timid and some are, and their response and how you are with them. I think that's really fascinating, and it kind of lets them have a safe place. And I think it really helps that the author feels the same way.
I'm not above these children. I am with these children. They are my tribe. They are my people. I am part of their people. It's like part of me never grew up. So I think they sense that right away.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Even though I'm old.
Come on now.
Yeah. And that's fine. It's true.
Well, we're very close in age, and I back in May jumped back in that big purple costume. So, it's really up here, right? It's how you feel,
It did.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my heart has stayed a child as well. So you went from anxiety, and then the next message that you wanted to tackle, which is the one we understand with Barney so much, which is love.
Mm-hmm. So Pika Bunny asks Mama what love is. And Mama answers that love is how we act, not how we feel. And giving is the happiest love can be. And Pika Bunny's not sure what Mama meant.
Right.
But every time he says, I love you, he feels wiggling and squiggly inside. So he goes on a little journey to prove to Mama he knows what love is. And he picks 3 flowers. And it's really fun to interact because he does end up giving all the flowers away before he gets home. Shh, secret.
Yes. Tell no one.
And, you know, part,
I said, well, tell no one. It's between you and I. I can
oh,
keep a secret.
it's between us. It's
Yes, I
between us.
got you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he picks 3 flowers, and I have an interactive reading, and I say, oh, the first one's blue, like the smell of
And what do they say? And they say,
anything they want.
uh,
And they get excited because they never thought about what blue smells like. And then I say the second's pink, like the taste of, and I get all kinds of answers. And then this is the hardest one for most people. The third is orange, like the feel of. Yeah. So it's really fun.
well, and I love that because, we learn, and we talk about this on the show all the time, imagination and creativity. Kids all have it. And as they get older and they become adults, a lot of them, I don't want to say lose it, but it's just pushed away. It's not encouraged.
Right.
And they have it within themselves. They had it in a drawer, right? Just like you did. They had it in a drawer, and they look at it and they look at it, and it's so important to push creativity and let them be creative. And I love that. I love seeing those because I can just imagine the different answers that come out to those questions.
Oh, all kinds, all kinds. Leaves, blueberries is probably the most popular.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't matter the sky. It doesn't matter what the answer is. It's just that they're using their imagination and they feel like they're part of the story.
So, where did this come from on because I know that question for adults of asking about for a child to ask you about love, I know that's an emotion that's very difficult to explain and to understand, and obviously there's all types of different aspects of love.
Right, right. Because mama's talking about love is understanding, love is kindness, and he comes up with a little rhyme, and he says, love is kindness, love is giving, love's an action and not a feeling. And he has to think about how is it an action and not a feeling?
Right.
And there's 3 different characters. One needs a hug. She's a prickly porcupine. Her name's Downy Poof Puff. And it's really fun to have them say, everybody wants to say Downy Poof Puff for some reason. So we all say it together. It's kind of tickly in the mouth. And the second is a rainbow butterfly, and she needs shelter. And then the third is an elderly grizzly bear, and he's asleep. So Pica just leaves a flower for him out of appreciation, because I think, the elderly, need to be appreciated. So I've tried to find 3 different types of people who would need 3 different kinds of ways to be loved.
So Pika Bunny is the one common element in each of the books?
Mm-hmm. He's the main character. He's the one going through the discovery.
And then, so now the third book,
Mm-hmm.
we went into.
That's Pika Bunny Says.
It says eat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pika Bunny Says eat.
Yeah, how can you not say that and laugh?
I
And
know,
so-
right?
I know.
Even though it's a
I know. We were talking about that. It's hysterical. And so the message on Pika Bunny Says eep.
Well, the American pica, so when I talk about the American pica, no matter what book I'm reading, it really says eep when there's a predator in its habitat. So it's warning everybody. It's like saying no.
Okay.
It's like letting people know that something's happening. So the other 2 stories are kind of linear.
Right.
It goes from like the beginning to end, and you can see where it's probably going. You can kind of guess where it's going. This one took me 2 years to write this. My friend Mary Alice said, Pika Bunny needs to have a story about bullying. And I thought, oh my goodness, how do I do that? It's such a huge subject. Nobody even wants to talk about it. So how am I going to make a story about it? So finally, after 6 months, she convinced me to give it a try. So I went to the library and I read all the kids' books I could find on bullying to see what had already been done and to see what I liked about them and how I could make my story different. And many of the stories that I read had the adults solving the problem. And not all the time do we have an adult to help us solve the problem. So that was my starting point. So the first scene is Pika Bunny's asking old Daniel, what is meanness? And old Daniel's like, he's waking up from his nap and he's trying to figure out like why Pika Bunny has pine needles sticking out of him. And
Right.
like, what is meanness? I'm trying to, what is that? I guess to lack of love. And then Pika Bunny says, is that what bullying is? And before old Daniel can answer, Pika Bunny says, thank you. He hops on to another adult. And he goes to a duck, Mrs. Waddell, because she gives swimming lessons and she has a lot of courage. So he asks her, how do you find courage? And, she finds that to be an odd question, but Pika Bunny's always asking big questions. So she said, you have to know why you need courage. And you have to take a deep breath and a hop forward and know that, why you're doing it. And before she could ask him why he's even asking, he runs off again. And then we find that he had been collecting this advice from the adults because one of his friends is getting bullied. So that's the premise.
It's an interesting No, I'm sorry. It's an interesting subject because we've tackled this one before on Purple Roads. We had Ken Scott on, who turned out to be one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but he became that because he was bullied in school, and that got him into martial arts and down that path. It seems to be a subject that's very difficult for people to talk about, but I think almost all of us have been affected by it at some point, in some way, in school or some aspect. We all had that, whether it was not fitting in or whatever it is. And I know it's very difficult for children because you don't understand why you're being bullied usually. And a lot of times you're just being bullied because they want to bully someone. You've done nothing. So I think it's really interesting that you've decided to go after this message. And I think it pulls in perfectly with what you're talking about with kindness and love. What's the reaction been to this book?
Oh, it's been wonderful. The premise of the book is not Pika Bunny's not getting bullied himself, but he's witnessing the bullying.
Sure.
So most often when kids are at school and they're getting bullied, there's witnesses.
Right.
So if one person stands up for somebody, it seems to give more power to the bully. The bully's like, wow, not only am I bullying this person, I got this person upset too.
Right.
And the bully feels more powerful. But when Pika Bunny says eep, then the little chameleon that's getting bullied, she says eep for herself. And then everybody watching around says eep, and it totally takes the power away from the bully, and the bully just slinks away. Now there's stories out there which would be great if the bully would just turn around and be your best friend.
Right.
But that's probably not going to happen. And it's wonderful when it does, but that's not the story I wanted to tell. And it's great if somebody else wanted to, but that's not the story I wanted to tell because I needed to be more realistic of what really happened.
Sure.
So after I read the story, we actually practice in a safe space. I have one person come up to be the pretend bully, one person to be pretend bullied. And on the count of 3, the pretend bully will say something pretend mean. And I'll say 1, 2, 3. And then the bully will say something and there's silence, just like in real life. So I'll say, hey, what would Pika Bunny say? And then you see it on their faces like that. And I said, we're going to practice again. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And the pretend bully will go. And then you'll hear eat, or no, no, no. And then whoever's the pretend bully will laugh and literally turn their backs to the group. And I said, that's what happens is when you don't have to yell it because we don't want to bully the bully.
Right.
But if you just say no in numbers, it takes the power away from the bully. And the bully's like, I can't win this. And it's been, wonderful. I saw it happen actually before the book was actually a real book.
Uh-huh.
I was in a school and I was telling them the premise about it, saying eep. And then I heard some kids talking on the side. So I walked over and I there was one little girl, and she was sitting in the middle of like two rings of kids, and she was looking at me. Her eyes were huge. And then I heard somebody say "eep," and I said, "Oh my goodness, is it working?" And the kids that said "eep" just smiled and nodded their heads. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this really is going to work. This is working already, and it's not even in book form yet." So it's been amazing.
So you've had stories of children that have, since the book came out, they've used it?
Yeah, yes. And then when I'm reading, they already kind of knew the story, but then they said some of them who weren't ready to say "eep" yet, because you don't have to say "eep" or "no." It's just
Right.
if you want to stand up. And some in the back said, "Well, what if they don't know what "eep" means?"
Right.
And I said, "Well, if you say "eep," what do you think the bully's going to do? The bully's going to be like, "What are you talking about?" If they
Right.
don't know the story.
Sure.
I said, "It's going to break it right there." And then the kids just giggled and laughed, and they said, "Yeah."
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I love that. So now you've got the 3 books out, and you've been traveling, and you've also been doing Skype versions of reading these books to kids.
Yes.
What's that experience been like for you?
Well, I have over 300,000 Skype miles, so
Wow.
I've read in classrooms in over 13 countries, and I've read in person in 3 different countries,
Wow.
and then of course all over the United States and many children's hospitals. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to be at a children's hospital in March, and it's one of my favorite visits because if I could just get their minds off the masks and the tubes and all for minutes, just for 5 little minutes, and see them smile and not think about what they're going through. It's just very rewarding.
Well, I did that for 20 years, and it changed my life. I've told stories before on this show and other shows about it, and people are like, it's so sad. I'm like, I never saw sadness. I
Right.
never saw sadness in a hospital. The parents were so thankful. The kids just saw their friend Barney. They didn't know what was going on, and what I got out of it, seeing the courage of those children, seeing the love. It's just such an amazing experience. So I can just imagine for you, getting the privilege to do this has been amazing. How many hospitals have you traveled to?
I've been to the one in Boston. I think this will be my 4th time. Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Cincinnati a few times, and I know I'm missing another one. I can't think of it right now, but I get to go more than once, so it's great. So whenever I'm in that area, we're going to be traveling through the area. I'm like, "Oh, can I please come back?" And they're like, "Yes, yes, come on." They give me a time, and I'm there.
That's awesome. So where do you plan to take Pika Bunny? Because I have a feeling
Well,
three books is just a start for you.
right. So I have 2 other manuscripts for the learning series. I have a manuscript out for a chapter book because my little, or not my, well, I want to say my little fans, Pika Bunny's little fans have asked for chapter books so they could grow up with Pika Bunny. So my chapter book is out to agents and 9-story.
So I'm sorry. So
If I get a no, I get a
what is a chapter story?
chapter book.
Chapter book?
It's
Yes.
the smaller, thicker books.
Okay.
And it has 6,000 words, where these have about 1,000, 1,200 words.
Oh, okay.
Or 1,200 words. Yeah, it's the different format with the books. And I have Pika Bunny and Friends is my series for when Pika Bunny is growing up. My first manuscript is called The Christmas List.
Ah.
And it's 4:00 on Christmas Eve. And Pika Bunny needs to turn in his Christmas list to his mama by 6:00 before the tree trimming party, because he knows Santa's coming. He's going to bring some gifts, and that's all he's talking about are those gifts. And he sticks his little list in his pocket, and his friends get so upset. They're like, "You talk about gifts too much." And then he goes to his pocket and he realizes he doesn't have any pockets.
So you've got that one working, and then what else are you working on?
I have 2 screenplays of my books, and I'm going to be starting my second manuscript for the chapter piece in 2 weeks. I'm doing my research right now.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. So where are you going to go with it? Let's talk about the app a little bit more, as I'm very fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by kids and now adults trying this app out. And if they're there it is.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
There it is. And let's see if I'm going to go to. Oh, you're going to see my scores. Yeah, these are.
It's a good example, though.
All right. Oh, I'm doing good. And everything is pretty much even. I have a 10 points right now at school or work. I have 10 at home, and I have 11 for our planet before I go to level 5.
So now, how does it explain how it works?
Okay, so I just went to the school page.
Okay.
And there are things on there that you can click, like ask how are you, be brave for a friend, be brave for myself, be patient, be real, bigger smiles, do a good deed, encourage someone, forgive someone, give a compliment, give up your seat, help a friend, help a librarian, help a teacher, help the elderly, hold the door, keep a promise, make a new friend, make peace, more smiles, open a door, play with new friends, raise my hand, say good morning, sorry, please, and thank you. Share something at school, use my manners, volunteer to help, wait my turn, and wave at kids on the bus. So if there's something that you've done or your child's done that's not listed, there's do a good deed. So that's an example of the school page.
So every time you do something, you just kind of check it off.
You just hit the little heart and it goes red, and then you get a point. And when I was beta testing it, a lot of people were saying, well, there's no reward. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, being a good, nice person should be the reward.
That is the reward, right?
Right, but everybody's so reward oriented. But I decided to leave the rewards up to the gatekeepers. So if parents want to set a reward, like, okay, if you have so many points at home, then we'll go get ice cream, or we'll buy a new book, or we'll go to the movies, or whatever. I just leave that open for whoever's using it.
Yeah, but I can see that. But don't you think the point is you want to do kindness because you're just being kind, right? You're not doing it because there's an ice cream cone. Yeah. Even though I like a good ice cream cone, but it should be just because you're being kind, right?
Yeah, you're right. But that's where a lot of the world is right now.
Right.
Where's my reward? Well, there are all kinds of rewards. So you can talk about that as a family or as a classroom, because there are classrooms that use this too.
Well, and that's why this is so important. I think it's just fascinating that you were turned down writing a book about kindness 20 years ago because they said it wasn't relative, and people don't understand. When Barney was doing All About Love, people didn't get it. They were like, "Well, I don't understand this," and now the world is just screaming for these messages, and there's the importance right there of having a kindness app to get people to be kind, not because they're going to get something, but because it's good for everyone. I know it's
right.
I absolutely love it. So let's talk a little bit about this journey you've been through. Purple Road is all about the journey. You went from having a lot of courage to write and then send out and then get turned down. What has this journey been for you, from sending that manuscript out and being told no to now having these books in your hand?
It's kind of, I'll try to describe it as best I can. It's all these baby steps that all of a sudden have taken me like a marathon. Like it was a marathon. All of a sudden, I'm like, what's going on? And when I see Adam, I'm like, Adam, look what you've done. The one that asked me in the first place what I do all day.
Uh-huh.
I said, this is all your fault. I laugh. But that just, like I said, it's way beyond the books. It's way beyond the books themselves. I read Pika Bunny Has a Big Question to a school in London.
Okay.
And I didn't even know if they liked the story.
Uh-huh.
And, I hope they liked the story. And I did an interactive reading. At the end, we all made little tissue flowers to give away to somebody. And then I just found out a couple weeks ago that the school in London not only uses the app at school, but they made a musical out of the book.
Wow.
And I was like, I wasn't even out of bed when I was reading it, and I burst into tears, just thankful, grateful tears. I scared my dogs. My dogs were like, what's going on? Why is she crying? She's not even out of bed. The lights aren't even on yet. And just knowing how much time, and you understand how much time that is, because
Yes.
being in the business.
Yes.
And me being a dancer, I knew, like, first they had to learn their lines. They had to understand the empathy for the characters. They had to act it out with blocking. They created their own music.
Right.
And then they put it all together and performed it. And I'm just now getting to the point where I can talk about it without tearing up.
Well, I think it's okay to tear up. You've done something and you've inspired children. I think it's just absolutely amazing. So I think I know the answer to this, but what lessons have you learned through this journey? Obviously, never giving up is an important one, but what have you learned through this that you can share with other people that have these dreams and have got the book in the drawer right now?
Yeah, a lot of people have a book in the drawer, and what I'd like to say to them is you have to know why you need courage. Why did you write your manuscript? Why did you write your books? When you know that, then you can think about what you want to do. What do you want to do with that? Do you want to keep it hidden again? Do you want to keep it private? Some people do. They want to keep the secret. They're not about sharing it. But if you just have a little bit of courage, you could bring it out and then maybe have your best friend read it. Now, I was a little afraid to do that, but it takes a lot, just little baby steps. Just getting it out of the drawer in the first place is a huge step. I call it a baby step. But the very first thing I did was I didn't grab it out of the drawer and just mail it off. I worked on it again. And then I just told myself, it doesn't matter what other people think. You believe in yourself. You believe in your story. You tell people all the time to go ahead and go for it. Try, get yourself out there. It's okay. And then you're not doing it yourself. So it's that inner dialogue. You have to be positive, and then you just send it out, and then I didn't even look at my email. I don't even look at my email for a response. I just try to forget about it. And then when I get the no, I'm like, oh yeah, did I send it to that person? Because I'm not dwelling on it. I'm
Right.
not obsessing over it. And then if somebody's interested and they want more information, well, that's always exciting.
Right.
And then, of course, the yeses. I'll tell you one thing, all the no's that lead up to that yes make that yes sweeter.
Oh, absolutely. I was told
Yeah.
no so many times it's not even funny. So I know exactly.
You
what
get
you're
used to
talking
it.
about. You do get used to it. I think it's very difficult for people that get into the creative world to understand that's part of the world. In the creative world,
Right.
you're going to be told no. I mean, it's just going to happen. And it's really how you respond to it.
Right. And then when I was in dance, we would have little critiques before our pieces would be on stage. Times some people weren't really nice about how they were giving criticism, and other people were giving it out of a place of love.
Right.
And you think, oh, I worked so hard. This is my life. Art is it. Everybody's going to love it. And then somebody will say, I think you can do more with it. Then you have to be open and go, can I do more with it? And then you ask questions like, in what way? like, how do you think I can make it better? Where do you think it's lacking? And then you also ask them where you think they think you did a good job. And then you have to think about, well, does that make sense to my story? And then you can make your story so much better by just forgetting your ego and just listening to what other people have to say. You don't have to apply everything they say. But what if there's a nugget there that, wow, you would have missed out on, and now your piece is going to be so much better, or your story.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating because I just don't think you you have these dreams, and I think we look at it when we're told no, and we don't understand. We may just have to go another. No doesn't always mean no. It just means I need to go another way to get to yes. And you
Right.
obviously did that. Did you ever think about giving
Yeah.
up? Were you going to leave that? Did you ever think about just leaving that book in the drawer?
Once I decided in 2014 I was going to brush it off and give it another chance, I already let no affect me for over 2 decades. So it wasn't going to affect me again. Nobody knew I was sending them out. It was no secret. And now, I'm having courage to say what I would love for Pika Bunny to have a TV series. I'm having courage to say what I would like to happen.
Sure.
Because what if it doesn't happen? Which it's going to happen, I know.
Of
But
course
I mean,
it
like,
is.
you have to keep telling yourself it's okay to get the no's, because you do learn from every no. I mean, sometimes they don't give you exact feedback, but you're like, okay, well, this didn't work there. And just know that is a door that you probably weren't supposed to go through in the first place. If they don't love your work, then you need to go somewhere that does.
Well, I was relating when you were talking about how you changed the bunny into Pika Bunny, because we did that with the big purple dinosaur. Barney was a darker purple when he first was in his original videos, and the costume was changed a lot from when it first started to when it got in the TV show. So I
Right.
think that initial creativity is important. That for us it was a dinosaur, for you it was a bunny, and then you can make adjustments to get where you want to be. But if you're thinking it's got to be perfect off of the bat, I think that's
Right.
where you're going to end up having a problem. You've got to just let the creativity flow, and then you make adjustments, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Like, even right now, if somebody said, "Oh, I'd like to pick up your manuscript for your series," or somebody wants to do something with Pika Bunny, I am totally open to making Pika Bunny look totally different. I mean, I'm not set on anything. If you want Pika Bunny to look a little bit different, that's fine. You have to be open and let things be organic. And but if they do something, like, I wouldn't ever want Pika Bunny to hold like a gun or something.
Well, right.
Like, I would be, well, like, all of a sudden you're like, what is that cartoon doing? And I wouldn't want Pika Bunny to do anything like that. I would be protective about that.
Sure.
But I'm not protective about the way he looks.
Sure.
Or the way he could look.
Well,
That's fine with me.
we went through that. Well, Barney went through that because we never entertained adults, and a lot of parents didn't get that. That we were just entertaining and educating children. We never changed that. We were a show from Texas, and we kind of did it a little bit different, and we never changed the core values of it. And I think that's what's important. What you're talking about is that you're sticking to those core values.
Right, exactly. And if it's not something that I would do, as far as, like, I would like to be treated like I treat other people, or vice versa. That's what Pika Bunny is about, is just treating each other with respect. And that, to me, is the major core value in all of the books.
So we're kind of hitting this at near the end instead of at the beginning. But I do want to talk about, what was your we were talking about this earlier. What was your inspiration as a kid? What did you love as a kid that got you to doing this?
Oh, I loved Mr. Rogers. I love Mr. Rogers. He was talking to me. He was talking to me right when I needed somewhat an adult to say that they understood me and I was okay the way I was. And when sometimes I feel angry, and what does that feel like? And anger would scare me. Like, why do I feel this inside? But Mr. Rogers always knew, and he could explain it to me. Romper Room was wonderful. When she held up that mirror at the end, and I would just, oh, please say my name. Please say Wendy. Please say Wendy. And then she'd call some of my friends' names, and I'd be excited. Oh, she saw Jennifer, or, she saw whoever, David or Mike or whatever the names were. I would be very excited that she saw my friends. So I thought she was talking to me. And that, left a lasting impression. There's a quote from Mr. Rogers, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he said, everything comes from a place of love or a lack of it. And it's so true. If you think about it, it's so true.
Oh, very much so. I was very fortunate to actually do an event with Mr. McFeely early on in my Barney days, and I met him. I met him, and I was already excited. But he was dressed in street clothes, and he went into the other room and changed into his wardrobe, and he came out and said, "Speedy delivery," and I nearly passed out.
I would have burst into tears right there.
I was just blown away by it, and people on this show know I also got to work with Carol Spinney that played Big Bird, and they, yes, and I know, but those were the reactions. I've been doing this for 15 years, but when you see them, and I think what is so important is they kept to those messages. Mr. McFeely
Right.
and Carol believed in what they were doing, believed in those messages, and they weren't just an actor. They were living the message that they were out there. I don't know if I want to say preaching, but just the message they were getting out there. And obviously, you're doing that, which I just think is so inspiring.
Well, thank you. I didn't intend it. It just became larger than I'd ever had dreamt. I mean, yeah, when you said Big Bird, I got a little tear. Like Big Bird, he was like, I knew that if I could ever be under Big Bird's wing, I would just feel so safe. It's just like, and Big Bird's so innocent and tries and, fails sometimes and then tries again. And just those characters, you just get in your heart and they stay in there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think it's important that that message has to be carried on. And
Yeah.
and I see you doing it. And the funny thing is, I think this is probably, you just said, bigger than you thought it would be, but it's obvious that you are ready for this. You're ready for where it's going. You're out creating apps and manuscripts and all kinds. Goodness gracious. I think we're going to see Pika Bunny everywhere before too long.
Oh, I don't know. I just want to help kids. I just want to be like, I can't be Mr. Rogers, obviously. Can't replace Mr. Rogers, but if I could just, so when I read on Skype, I love it when the kids come to the computer, come to the camera and ask me a question. And so when they come up to the camera, I say hi before they say anything, and they say hi. And I try to look them right in the eye in the camera and I say, I see you. Because that's what I loved. And I know how important that is. And they would just look at me like, you can see me? And I'm like, yes, I can see you. What is your big question? And then, it's just them and me for a second. It's wonderful.
It's an amazing experience. I got to feel that with Barney a lot of times, and it's an incredible experience. When the world just kind of disappears and you're able to have that moment with a child. And, what I learned is that a lot of times it looks like I'm teaching them something, but a lot of times they're actually teaching you something.
Yeah. I hope they got, I feel like I'm the one that's getting blessed. I hope I'm blessing them as well. But yeah, it's very rewarding in ways that I had never dreamt of. Because when I was writing, I was just at the point where I just wanted it to be in book form. Like I wanted it to be a real book. Didn't think about where it was going to go from there.
Right.
I didn't. But like you said, I wasn't ready, but now I am.
Yeah,
Now
there's
I
no
am.
question you're ready. I can tell you're ready. So thank you
Well,
so much for being on today. Can let people know where they can find your books
okay.
and the apps and everything.
Sure. My books are on Amazon or anywhere you buy books online, Barnes and Noble, wherever. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram as at Pika Bunny Says. And then I have a website, wendygilhula.com. So
And,
yeah, I would love for you to reach out and connect.
and you did this earlier, so show me how you pronounce your name.
Gilhula. Gil like a fish. I say hula like the dance.
I love it. I love it. We will also have all the links to your social media and where to find the books on the end of this program. Congratulations on all
Thank
your
you. And thank you for all
success,
the work.
and just keep
Thank you.
getting that message out. I think it's beautiful, and I'm so thrilled that you were on the show today.
Well, thank you. Thank you from me and my family and everything that you've provided for us over the years. And it means a lot. Thank you.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much to all of the Purple Roads fans. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and your heart open, and you'll find your Purple Road. I love you, and we'll see you next week.